Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss what the consensus amongst various experts seems to be about the best strategy Keir Starmer can adopt with Donald Trump when they have their first post-inauguration call over the next week. In other words, how do we get the best case scenario from a president who sees every interaction as something he must win? But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button so you stay notified. So, latest person to weigh in on how Starmer should approach Trump is Sir Kim Darroch, who's the British ambassador to the United States when Trump first became president and was the ambassador for most of his term. He had some very specific advice, which is actually broadly in line with what a number of people who understand Trump or UK-US relations, or both, have also been saying. Because although there's no shortage of articles urging Starmer to prioritise Europe over America, and of the public saying they want him to prioritise the EU over Trump, Starmer's already said he's doing this. It's obvious enough. We actually have scope for a closer relationship with the EU, and doing so could actually move the needle on our economy. There is no real scope for any tangible improvements to our trading, security, or political relationship with the United States. So it's obvious where most of your efforts go, and it's also obvious that the government agree. As I keep pointing out, not only do the government keep saying that, yes, the EU is their top foreign policy priority, but they have a minister whose day job is working on better EU relations. We don't have a minister for US relations. That should tell enough of a story. But it's also fairly weird to frame this as choosing between the US and the EU. Ignoring Trump produces economic damage on the same scale as Brexit. Like, how on earth can some people attack the economic damage that Brexit has caused and then advocate for a double helping? So Starmer is right. The UK cannot choose one or the other. It needs both. And what's more, trade experts have said the same thing. But there is a fundamental difference in approach with the EU and the US. We are actively working on getting better deals with the EU. With the US, we're basically trying to tread water until sanity returns to the American government. We want to go forwards with Europe. With America, we just want to avoid going backwards. So what's the practical advice Darroch had for Starmer, which I've seen echoed by others as well? Well, I mean, he made a couple of good general points. The first, don't bother Trump with a long list of objectives. Darroch didn't say so, but I will. Trump is too thick to hold more than a few thoughts for more than a few seconds. So there's no point in overburdening the pickled walnut occupying his cranial cavity. Starmer should go in with a couple of things and hammer those. Second, that Trump wants something tangible. Don't waste time talking about the special relationship. Like, the only special relationship Trump recognises is the one he has with reality. So down to specifics. Top of the agenda, we don't really fancy Trump slapping extra tariffs on British imports. That's basically it. Now, we do have a couple of arguments here. The first, which Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds has been talking about recently, is that our balance of trade is in America's favour. Trump has talked about using tariffs as a way of reversing negative balances of trade. Not that it really works that way, but that's what he thinks. But their balance of trade with us is positive from their point of view. So we can argue, well, there's no need. You've said you want to do this to reverse balance of trade. Your balance of trade is already in your favour. But that argument alone won't be enough, because if he thinks the tariffs can work to get an even more positive balance of trade, right? So Darroch suggests pointing to his economists showing that applying these tariffs, yes, it does us no good, but it's even worse for America. It hurts America. Coupled with the fact that his big business advisors, the oligarchs he's surrounding himself with, they're not in favour of the tariffs. So it is possible to make the case in a way which puts the emphasis on the benefit to Trump, not to us. Basically, don't make any argument to Trump that spends even a nanosecond talking about what we want, only what benefits him. It's all he cares about. Darroch's second bit of advice is to ignore Musk's rant on Twitter. In all honesty, Starmer's been doing that anyway. It was actually vaguely hilarious. Was it 2 or 3 weeks ago when Musk decided to turn his hatred onto Farage briefly, and Starmer was just tweeting about the darts. But Darroch reckons that the more Musk blathers on, the less people will consider what he says newsworthy. But also there are reports that Trump is already finding Musk a bit much. The relationship could sour in time anyway. And I think Labour are probably hoping that it does that before they have to turn their attention to strengthening the law against disinformation on social media, for example, because that's going to mean a bit of a collision course with Space Karen. And it would be enormously helpful if Trump no longer cared about what Musk said at that time. Finally, Darroch talked about the weakening of the 20th century alliances and that we would have to address defence quite urgently. Trump wants NATO members to contribute more. Now, as I've said before, this is one of Trump's very few reasonable points of view, even though achieving it would make America less powerful on the world stage. But if they're going to keep electing people like Trump, I think a lot of people would agree this is no bad thing. Starmer has already committed to bringing defence spending back up to 2.5% of GDP after the Tories trashed it, but this won't be nearly enough. Not only has Darroch said so, independent defence experts have said so as well. But with an actual invasion of Europe going on and America not being a reliable partner now, this is also something that other European powers are having to grapple with. So it's not something we need to sort out alone, unlike the trading relationship where we are on our own. There's a proposal for a Europe-wide defence fund, which the UK could participate in, designed as a way of responding to Trump's threats to withdraw commitment from NATO. Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister of Poland, which has the EU presidency at the time, has been saying that Europe has to start defending itself and it has to find the economic solutions to do so. And Poland spends more of its GDP on defence than any other country within NATO, including the United States. But as it is no easy task to get other countries to bring themselves up to Poland's level, there needs to be another way. Tusk is proposing something which is described as being similar to the coronavirus scheme, of allowing like a central fund using borrowing on the international market to address this. The Telegraph have been reporting that some British diplomats think we are going to need to join this scheme ourselves, given how tight our own finances are. Which would be ironic in a sort of way, wouldn't it? Putin pushed Brexit because he thought it would weaken Europe. Now, in some ways it did. In trading terms, it did. But in terms of the weakness he wanted, like it didn't divide us against him over Ukraine. It might now mean that there is a European defence force emerging because Vlad's useful idiot in Washington is pressuring us to sort ourselves out. So as a direct result of Putin's efforts to invade Europe, he may find that Europe's defence becomes stronger than it ever has been. And ironically, because of Brexit, our finances are not in a position to be able to do defence on our own. And those are probably the two best areas where we want agreement with Trump. Because in terms of other areas, I mean, there's not really anything on the table. So I think those are the two areas. Ideally, try and persuade Trump not to start a trade war at all. But if he insists, leave us out of it and keep supporting Ukraine on the understanding that in Europe we are going to ramp up our contributions over the next decade so that America can mobilise more to the Pacific if that's where their interests lie. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.